to take a moment to introduce, I probably should have done this at the last segment, but to take a moment to introduce your candidates for school board. On the stage with me right now, in the farthest seat from me is Miss Holly Herbst. In the middle, Mr. Kent Zimmerman, and closest to me, Miss Melissa Przezinski. So at this point, we will allow them each 3 minutes to introduce themselves, and by coin flip that I did weeks ago, Miss Herbst, we'll let you go first.
Is this working? Okay, my name's Holly Herbst. I've been a resident of Vandalia for 23 years. I'm married to Richard, and we have 2 boys that are both away at college right now. So just a little background about me. I have a bachelor's degree in math and computer science from Purdue University, and I have an MBA in finance from Wright State University. And for the past 20 years, I've worked as a financial analyst for Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati. I have a lot of experience with budget management, strategic planning, and that sort of thing. And I think over the past 5 years, the school district has done a great job getting back under financial control. And I think I bring the skills to help continue that fiscal responsibility. So.
All right, Ms. Herbst, thank you very much. We will go over then to Ms. Przezinski. Your 3 minutes starts now.
Good evening. Thanks, Will and CLC, for hosting the forum this evening. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience, but for those of you who may not know me, my name is Melissa Przezinski. My maiden name is Snell. I am a Vandalia-Butler community native and a Butler High School graduate. I'm married. I have 3 aviators that attend 3 different schools in our district. I have worked for the city of Vandalia for 30 years in several different divisions. And during that time, I have worked very hard to establish and maintain relationships with residents, community, patrons, the school district staff, my co-workers, and the reason is that our community is a very tight-knit community. We're still a community of neighbors helping neighbors, neighbors who help each other raise their children. We are a community that has a lot of aviator and community pride, and all those things were present last week at our homecoming events. I want you to know that I'm looking forward to continuing my service as a board member, and that I'm sincere about giving back to the community that has afforded my family so many opportunities and the place that I call home. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Melissa. And then our third candidate, and your 3-minute time, Mr. Zimmerman, starts now.
First, I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight to our meeting, and I'd also like to express my appreciation to the sponsors. I count it a blessing to be able to serve the community where I live. I'm married, and my wife and I have 2 Butler alums as children. I have the highest respect for the outgoing board member, Mr. Bob Cupp. He served the community with dignity and humility. He and Mr. Bill Hibner served the district well as invaluable members when the district chose to renovate the high school and to build the new Morton School. Both Mr. Cupp and Mr. Hibner could talk the talk with the architect, the builders, the EPA rep, the project manager, and the district was in great hands to have 2 gentlemen of that caliber on the board. When I learned that Mr. Cupp was stepping down after 12 years of service, I recalled with appreciation the history that Mrs. Judy Abramowitz gave to the board as a member. She knew who did what, when, why, and how. And we would turn to Judy for a history lesson whenever things got difficult. When I looked at the composition of the new and pending board, I noticed that Ms. Kelsheimer was the seasoned veteran of the board. I'm excited at the possibility of new ideas and new members on the board, but I also would like to suggest that reflections of past practices are critical as well. And I can bring that reflection to the board since I served on the board from 2008 to 2011. Each board member, as I have determined, brings an area of expertise to the board. I understand education. I am a professor at Sinclair Community College and have taught there full-time for 36 years. I will add the voice in the area of faculty development, classroom management, online instruction, and curriculum assessment. My other colleagues here have their areas of expertise, which will make the board a lively discussion spot for all of us. My experience includes to be honored in a humble way as the Ohio Teacher of the Year by the Ohio Association of Two-Year Colleges, and also the Distinguished Online Educator Award from the American Association of Community Colleges. I have served 9 years as a Board of Trustee member at my alma mater, Manchester University, and the fiduciary responsibility of a college trustee is very similar to that of what a school board member would have. I recently completed my service as the president of the International Listing Association. I look forward to serving on the board with two very capable members, Ms. Brzezinski and Mrs. Herbst. I'd like to thank all of you for coming this evening, and I ask for your vote on Election Day.
All right, thank you. And so at this point, we will go into our initial formal questions, if you will. Again, these questions were presented to the candidates prior to this evening, and they will each have 1 minute to respond to the questions. Each candidate will answer the questions. Ms. Brzezinski, in the basket next to you are some numbers, and those will correlate with the questions that we sent to you prior to this evening. If we pull the number 6 out of there, because I forgot to, since we only sent you guys 5 questions, we'll just put that aside and jump to the next draw-on. So we'll start again, Ms. Brzezinski, if you'll draw us a number. Question number 2. All right, so question number 2 is, over the past few years, bringing back local control has been a high priority of the Board of Education. How do you view this issue, and how can the board continue to push for more local control?
Local control is very important on many different levels here. As it relates to the district, there is no one knows our children better than we do here in this community, and this is one of those subjects where we need to continue to support Rob and his efforts in pressuring our legislators to give us more local control so that we can, better regulate our children and continue to be an outstanding school in the region.
Mr. Zimmerman, that same question, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm fine, thanks. While being independent is a long-held American tradition, receiving state funding of any amount comes with a price. The district currently receives about $5 million a year annually in state aid, but from those funds, the school district paid tuition bills for Butler students who wished to participate in College Credit Plus at an Ohio public institution. To pay those bills, our school district had to use funds which were originally then intended to pay for K-12 education. This is an example where the district has no control over this matter, but is mandated to pay for the CCP opportunity to those interested students. I think the school board, the city, the township should continue to press those area state elected officials, because the school district cannot fight the bureaucracy of the state on its own.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Mrs. Herbst, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, that's
All
fine.
right, go right ahead.
I have a very similar answer since I'm number 3. I do think local control is important. Again, we know our administrators know how to educate our kids a lot better than the state does. However, we still have to follow the state mandates. I would just encourage the board to support the superintendent as he continues to advocate for our district.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Zimmerman, you'll start the next questions, and please draw us a number. Question number 5. What do you see as an opportunity and or challenge for the Vandalia-Butler School District?
I see 2 challenges and 1 huge opportunity. Any organization without a plan is like a boat without a rudder. The primary challenge, I think, for the school district is to monitor the progress of the strategic planning goals. The community helped to craft the plan and the board approved it. The strategic plan includes 43 action items, 34 of which are already in operation. The administration is well on its way to implementing this plan. The second challenge I see is to adequately compensate our teachers for the important work that they do in the classroom, given the budget constraints that we have. And then finally, the primary opportunity that I picture for the school district is to maintain its excellence in, number 1, graduating students, and number 2, getting those students matriculated into institutions of higher education. According to the Learn to Earn Dayton website, Vandalia-Butler is 3rd in Montgomery County in both of those categories, and we should be very proud of that.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Herbst,
Okay.
shall I repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
As I mentioned before, I think over the past 5 years, the district has done a great job getting financially back in control. And I think the opportunity then is to maintain that with continued fiscal responsibility. I also think that's a challenge given our current state funding model. So I would encourage the administration to continue to do what they can to push back on that.
Great, thank you very much. If you'll pass the mic down to Ms. Brzezinski. And shall I read the question, or are you okay?
No, thanks.
Okay, go right ahead.
I do agree with my fellow counterparts here, but I also feel that, like, we have some more challenges. Sidewalks are currently a challenge. State testing continues to be a challenge. And state funding, obviously, is a challenge. We do have a lot of opportunities. They're outlined in our strategic plan. One of the biggest opportunities in the plan, in my opinion, is the communication aspect. We are pushing to get communication out to the community as often as possible. It's important to keep the information coming out of the district into the community, and we are using social media, various social media outlets. We're using our calendar. We'll be doing a quarterly newsletter, all in an effort to get information to people wherever they may be found.
Very good, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next question. Mrs. Herbst, if you'll draw a number for us.
3.
Question number 3. This question is, the school district has placed a $6.99 mil levy on the ballot. The district is asking that the levy be made permanent instead of a 5-year term as it was first passed. Do you support this levy and making it permanent?
I do support the levy, and I support making it permanent. I think the district has proven over the past 4+ years that they have made good use of the money, and it has definitely gone to the students. So I would like to see that continue. It also costs a significant amount of money to place a levy on the ballot. I don't think that's a good use of our money to do that every 5 years. I would rather see that money diverted to something in the classroom, teachers, technology, something like that.
Very good. And then Mrs. Brzezinski, you would be next to answer that same question.
I've got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes to the levy. I support it. Yes to it being permanent. There's no increase in tax. The current rate is clearly working. This will eliminate a small chunk of our financial instability due to constant changes in state funding, and it will allow us to continue to be competitive with other high-performing school districts in our region.
Thank you. And Mr. Zimmerman, the same question.
I've never voted against a continuing levy request. That is money that the taxpayer is already paying, and the district has earned our continued financial support by their actions. On one hand, the permanent levy would provide long-term financial stability for the district. On the other hand, some taxpayers believe that they have few methods to express their evaluation of how a school district is being run other than just voting at the ballot box. But having a vibrant, effective, and fiscally sound school district is paramount in keeping our local property values high. So therefore, by passing the permanent levy, the district will again have continuing financial resources and more predictable property values. And for those two reasons, I'll be voting yes in November for the renewal levy.
Great, thank you very much. Why don't we just, okay, go ahead, Melissa, you take that. That's great. We'll draw our next number. Well, we'll just act like that didn't get drawn. That was the mystery number 6. So we have question number 1, all right? And Ms. Brzezinski, you'll start us with this question, and that being, what would you cut from or add to the current budget and why?
Honestly, right now, I feel that our budget is pretty lean, so I don't know that there's something specific I would add or cut at this time. I feel that Eric does an excellent job of making sure that we get the most bang for our buck back into the classroom. And if you had any knowledge of Eric, you know that he is making sure the district is living within its means, strictly within its means. And if you have any further budget questions, I would encourage you to ask those tonight, because Eric will be answering questions after the board's up here. Or maybe drop in during his talk with the treasurer on Wednesday nights this October from 5 to 6:30 at the new board office.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zimmerman.
I think it'd be helpful to remind the voters that the primary role of the school board is to hire and to evaluate the superintendent and the treasurer. The other primary role is to provide input on the district's vision and direction and then pose pertinent questions when needed. The role of the school board is not to micromanage the administrative details or the financial plans. The superintendent and the treasurer are our management team. So that being said, I would still encourage the superintendent and the treasurer to monitor those areas where the district might be spending excessively on a per-student basis. While we want to provide a wide array of activities and class offerings, if the per-student cost is excessive, I think that might warrant more investigation.
Thank you. And Mrs. Herbst, the same question?
Sure. Yeah, again, as we've all mentioned, great fiscal responsibility at the district. One thing I would like to see cut from the budget, which we've already discussed, is the money that we put towards putting a levy on the ballot. So hopefully in November we can do that. As far as anything to add, I would love to see the high school add additional electives if possible. It's a great opportunity for the kids to try different things before they go to college, so that when they go, they may have a better idea of what they want to study.
Great, thank you very much. And then this will bring us to our 5th question. No need to draw here. It'll be question number 4 from your packets. And that question is, since the build-out of Morton Middle School, and even earlier with Smith Elementary, sidewalks on Stone Quarry to Morton and on Little York to Smith have been significant concerns to school officials and many of our residents. Funding for this would require significant commitments, especially from Butler Township. In your opinion, should the school district expend funds, as allowed by law, to help spur the projects to completion? Who should take the lead on this project? Would it be the school district? Would it be the township? Or should it be the city? Mr. Zimmerman.
I think we'd all agree that the safety of our children getting to and coming home from school is one of the highest priorities that a community could undertake. The school board provides advice and consent to the vision of the district's leadership team, the task of the school board then would be to charge the appropriate district officials to do several things. One would be to analyze the compelling situation. 2, complete comparative studies. 3, solicit proposals from outside vendors. 4, coordinate efforts with local officials. 5, provide ample opportunity for the community input. And 6, then to present the facts. At that point, the board would make its collective decision at the conclusion of this deliberative process. I appreciated what Mr. Betts and Mr. Lang said tonight. We realize that dollars are tight for everybody, but priorities must be made. And if the recommendation were to fund this project, budget adjustments would probably have to be made as well. And the question is, are the various stakeholders ready to make that compromise? I don't have a good answer tonight.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Herbst?
As far as who should pay for what, my opinion is that each entity should pay for their own portion of the sidewalk. So the school district should pay for the portion that's on school property, City of Vandalia for theirs, and the township for theirs. We already heard the significant expenditure that would be required by the township. And again, there's not a good answer to this. I would like to see the school district and representatives from the city and the township sit down together and try to figure out what is the best solution for the safety of the kids.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Brzezinski, the same question.
Okay. The way I feel about it right now, it's a complicated matter, but I believe the district should lead this project, bringing everyone to the table. We should all be exploring grant opportunities for this project. I know that you guys have done that out in the township. I heard you. But let's keep exploring, and each entity should be responsible for its own portion of the project. That's the way I feel about it right now.
Great, thank you very much. So that ends our formal question period. I would like to take just a few minutes here to allow you to write down your thoughts, your questions on those index cards that you were provided. We'll collect those and get started here in just a few minutes. All right, real quick, are there any other questions from those in attendance? All right, well, if our candidates are ready, we'll go ahead and get started with the public questions. We do have one here, and I don't have a name to go with this, so I'm not sure who it's coming from, but if anybody wants to own up, you can raise your hand. Oh, that gentleman right out there. Your name is? So Paul has presented this question. Thank you, Paul. And the question is, we'll start with Mrs. Brzezinski. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll start with Mrs. Herbst, and we'll keep that rolling through since she didn't have a chance to answer that. So Mrs. Herbst, you'll start us off. Would you consider yourself a supporter of the school administrators, teachers, and other staff members? If so, how? Let me read that again. Would you consider yourself a supporter of the school administrators, teachers, and other staff members? If so, how?
That's a tough question. I do consider myself a supporter of the administrators and the teachers and the students. How, I think, is by running for school board. I think we've all admitted that we're going into this with no agenda in mind. We're here to support the current administration. We think they're doing a great job. So I think that's how I'm showing support, at least.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Brzezinski, you would be next.
Thank you, Paul. I do agree with Holly, but we are advocating for all of you every day because you are the people who are giving our children opportunities every day. The staff, the teachers, you keep our kids safe. You make sure they have the tools to bring home so that we can help them learn. And we appreciate you, all of you. Thank you.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes, I'm a supporter of the individuals that you mentioned. I think our first priority is our children. We have to make sure that they're safe, first of all. Then we want to make sure that they graduate and that they learn life skills that they'll be able to use to be gainfully employed in the future. I'm supportive of the teachers. It's a tough job to teach today. It's the kind of job that goes home with you, and it's the kind of job that stays with you over the weekend. So it's a task that requires a lot of commitment, and I'm very supportive of our teaching staff and the time they invest. And then I really appreciate the expertise and dedication of the superintendent and the treasurer and their staffs. They have hired people to do the job. The role of the school board is to hire those two key positions and let them run the district with our advice and consent.
Thank you very much. We do have a few more minutes here, so we do have a couple other questions that had been presented before this evening. So we'll go ahead and take advantage of this time to ask a couple of these. Let's see, Mrs. Herbst started the last one, so Mrs. Brzezinski, we'll start with you. And the question here, this will be, in your view, what has the district done well over the last 5 years? What has the district done poorly that you would change? So two-part question there. Do you want me to read that again?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you, Will. I don't know that the district has necessarily done anything poorly other than transportation for a minute, but we corrected it quickly and swiftly, right? So as far as what we've done well, with the passage of the last levy, we've done everything we said we would do. And as far as the strategic plan goes, I think it's being implemented as we speak, and as Ken said earlier, out of 43 items that we are addressing, 34 are in action. So I think we're doing everything we should be doing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zimmerman, same question.
Under the board leadership of the late Mr. Suker and the superintendency of Mr. Neely, the district has really regained the confidence of the community. And I'm heartened by the fact that the district is keeping its finances within the expectations of the designated funding sources. It was a difficult time when I stepped off the board in 2011 because we had depressed property values, we had increased foreclosures, we had reduced state funding, and that led to a less predictable source of funding. Those were tough times, but I'm pleased to know that the economy has turned around significantly from the Great Depression that we experienced, plus the leadership of the two gentlemen that I mentioned. And as a result of that, I think that the district is on a much more solid footing.
Thank you. And if you'll pass the mic over to Mrs. Herbst. And Holly, that same question, do I need to repeat that, or
No,
you okay? Okay,
you
great.
don't. Thank you.
Go right ahead.
As I mentioned before, I think the district has done a great job with fiscal responsibility, and along with that, gaining the trust of the community again. I think that was lacking before, and they were able to gain everybody's trust again. And as Kent mentioned earlier, Vandalia-Butler is number 3 in the percentage of kids that graduate from high school and go on to a 2 or 4 year college, right behind Centerville and Oakwood. And they're number 3 in the number of kids that graduate from a 2 or 4 year college. So I think that is just tremendous. As far as what the district has done poorly, I honestly can't think of anything, especially over the past 5 years.
Great, thank you very much. Looking at time here, I think we'll have time for one more question. So I believe we'll start then with Mr. Zimmerman on this one. And this question again presented before the evening. So Vandalia-Butler has been deemed a wealthy district by the state of Ohio, and as a result, receives less state aid than many feel is adequate. What is your view on school financing, local tax levies, and addressing funding inequalities with the state?
I think it goes back to the Supreme Court decision about 20 years ago when the Supreme Court ruled the state funding model unconstitutional, put the ball into the court of the Ohio legislature, and they have held the ball. The local school districts then are being forced to find funds to pay for the mandates that are being passed by our state legislature with reduced funding from the state. I think one of the things that's troubling is their definition of a wealthy district takes a look at potential income rather than real income. I'm not sure that there is a person in this room that would look at the other cities in the state of Ohio and say, you know, I think the Vandalia-Butler area has to be one of the most wealthy communities in the state. Whatever definition the state is using to come to that determination, I think is being made on unrealistic expectations. I think that puts the burden then on the local district to not only plea with our state legislature to better define what wealthy is, and then more importantly, to fix the unconstitutional state funding model that currently exists.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Herbst?
I agree with everything that Kent said. I don't think anybody here would consider Vandalia to be a wealthy area, especially when you look at even some of the other school districts in Montgomery County. I also don't think that the way that the state funds the schools is going to really change anytime soon. I think it's our responsibility to do the most that we can with every dollar that we have, and I think we have been doing that. I also think the board can support the superintendent as he continues to advocate for our district as far as school funding goes.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Brzezinski?
I agree with my counterparts. I do think it's important. This is one of those subjects, again, where we need to pressure people in Columbus to recalculate or take another look at how they decide that we're the wealthy district here in this area, and come up with a more accurate formula that really tells you, decides or deciphers what a district's true needs are.
Okay, very good. Well, coming right up against our time, so I think we'll end it there, unless, are there any other questions by anyone in the audience right now? No? All right, so with that, I would again like to thank our candidates for their time this evening. I wish you all the best during the election process and your time on school board. And ladies and gentlemen, your candidates for Vandalia-Butler School Board. We'll do a quick change once again, and we'll invite our superintendent and treasurer from Vandalia-Butler Schools up to the stage.